This car is the end of a dying breed, and this is a really sad video for me to make. I love driving this car, but I'm honestly a little bit sad at the same time because this truly is a dying breed. Having a manual car with an internal combustion engine, a 6-speed gearbox, an incredibly direct steering input, and something that makes you feel like this, they won't be around much longer, particularly in this price bracket as we move towards electric cars, hybrid cars. The next Type R is almost certainly going to be one of the two. If there even is another one, there's lots of talk about this not actually being continued at all. So in this form, this is a real swan song to the era of driving that we all grew up loving and that we don't really want to let go of yet. I've been lucky enough to live with this Honda Civic FL5 Type R for the past 6 weeks, and there was one thing that kept coming to mind every single time I got behind the wheel. Not only does this feel like an old school Japanese car that I grew up loving, but more so, it feels like something that just can't be replicated. So today, I've grabbed my partner Erin, jumped in the FL5, and we're heading up to some of the best roads in Victoria to discuss something that may not be around for much longer. And no, I don't mean to sound dramatic with that intro, but realistically, for the 100k price bracket, or even anything above 100k, when will we see a car that is a manual only option with a 2-litre turbocharged motor in this size with the capability that this car has, being the Nürburgring and Suzuka front wheel drive record holder, ever again? You just won't get this in the future. You won't get a car that makes you feel so happy but also has wireless CarPlay or a digital dash or comfy seats and a heater and an aircon. It reminds me of what I love about the vintage Japanese motoring, just in a newer form. Like, the steering feels so direct even though it's electronically assisted. The shifter is so nice and short. It's being able to drop it down, jump on the brakes, tip it in, accelerate through a corner and out the other side. You won't get that in the future, and I'm so sad about it. Like, Honda have always been a class leader in the emotion of driving, and that's why I love Hondas. That's why I really want to buy a DC2 Type R this year, is because it gives you the feeling that I'm getting now in this car, being able to drive it, knowing that you've got front wheel drive, knowing how to steer a front wheel drive car through these corners. Now, I think the power output as well in this car is perfect. Like, people do tune these, you can get a little bit more power out of them. I would love to experience this car with an intake, maybe an aftermarket intercooler and a tune and an exhaust to see what it could really be like. But even in complete stock form, this is a press car that's been through many, many hands before me. So the tyres are absolutely shagged, but it doesn't matter because it still drives so well, just out of the box. They have engineered this car perfectly, but not over-engineered it to the point where it feels too artificial. Like, yes, there's a lot of electronic assist, and yes, it's not as raw as any 90s or even early 2000s Japanese car ever will be, but it's also not trying to be, and that doesn't matter. Because what this is a swan song to an era of motoring that we all grew up adoring. And this is the closest thing you can get in a new car form that I've experienced that makes you feel the same way that all of our heroes of yesteryear did. And that's a really special thing. But it's not all just about how the car drives. As car people, we want something that when we step out, walk into the shops, we spend about 5 minutes actually looking back and forth at the car, thinking how happy we are with the purchase. And that is what this car does. It looks absolutely amazing. So let's talk about that quickly. Visually, the FL5 is a big step up in my opinion from the Decepticon looking FK8. This is a more elegant, sophisticated and sleek design. It blends in with regular traffic, but if you look at it from behind, it is by no means pedestrian, and it still carries that same boy racer lineage as the EP3, the EK9, even the FM2, which is a funky looking little thing. And I love how, particularly at the front in Championship White, it just looks like a Stormtrooper. And the aerodynamics aren't just functional either. As I mentioned earlier, this car still holds the record for the Nürburgring and Suzuka in the front wheel drive class. And when you look at the design of the rest of this car, the aerodynamics are just perfectly integrated. And then up the front, you've got the hood vents, the 19-inch wheels from factory with the Brembos. And then down here, you've got a grille as well, which I'm told actually helps cool the brakes. And it's not just for show, because you can poke your finger all the way through. I've been so excited for the past few weeks to drive this car up here because I know what this car is capable of. It's not the first time I've driven this car in the hills. If you've been following the channel for a while, you would have seen in October last year when I was home in Adelaide, I drove an FL5 Type R through the Adelaide Hills, which are my favourite roads in the world. A big part of buying a brand new car is how it's going to make you feel. And on the road, the FL5 definitely inspires you like the heroes of yesteryear did. I've driven a lot of new Japanese performance cars this year, the GR Corolla, GR Supra, Mazda MX-5 and a few others, and they were all absolutely awesome. But this car, in my opinion, stands out among the rest, purely for that feeling of inspiring you like the heroes of yesteryear did. Not many new cars can do that. And the one thing that I really love about this car, and the one thing that I think sets this car apart from so many other new cars that I've driven, is just how awesome and direct the steering input is. That's why people love to drive Hondas, and it's why you come up here to absolutely toss this car into these corners, because even though this is a modern car, the steering is still very direct and it still feels incredibly personal, every input that you put into the car, particularly in R mode. And another crucial part of the Honda formula, something that they've been developing for years and years and years, is of course the shifter. In this car, paired with the Turbo K20, it's just so nice, and being able to tip it into these corners, drop it down a few gears, and then just launch it in, feels absolutely awesome. But of course, as much as I could write a love letter to this car, there are a few downsides. The first one is the obvious elephant in the room, and that's the price of this thing. No longer is a Honda Civic a cheap bargain performance car that you can pick up and thrash around for under 50 grand, or even 20 grand like they were back in the day, or even sub 10K like EK and EG Civics used to be in the good old days when I was 17, 18. This car drive away is around 80,000 Australian dollars, and that's a lot of cash. Doesn't matter if you're a rich or a poor person, that's a lot of money for a Honda Civic. The number one thing that let the FL5 down and stopped it from being a perfect 10 out of 10 for the sub 100k category in my eyes is the fuel capacity. This tank has about a 50 litre fuel capacity and you burn through it super fast, particularly if you're driving it in a little bit of anger here and there. My average fuel consumption was around 11.2 litres per 100. You only get around 320 odd k's, sometimes even less to a tank, and you genuinely feel like you're at the Bowser all the time. You'll begin to learn your fuel attendant's name. So me and Raj have been seeing each other a lot recently at my local BP. He's a lovely guy, and every time I drop in, he's always wondering what car I've got, but he's seen a lot of this one because I've been back so often. Since I've had this car, I've done about 1,000 kilometers of driving these past few weeks. My average fuel consumption is 11.2 litres per 100 kilometers. But I honestly do think that it's worth it, purely because for what else you can spend 100 grand on brand new, I don't think there's much that makes you feel like this. I really don't. I really liked the new GR Supra when I had that. That was an awesome car, but I couldn't drive that the way that I'm driving this up here. The GR Corolla, again, that was a really great car to drive. It was an absolutely awesome car to drive. I really liked it. It's a really good car, but the interior feels like crap. In here, this feels like an $80,000 interior. Even though it's a Honda, it rivals the functionality and the feel of some of the European cars that I've had that are double the price. And like any new car, of course, in the interior, because of emissions, they still want to try and give you that sensual driving experience through sound. And sadly, this car has a whole lot of fake noise that's pumped through the cabin. Like, you can probably hear that. That's not real exhaust noise. That's all pumped through the cabin in R mode. And I do drive the car in R mode when I'm up doing things like this. But if I drop it back to individual mode, which is pretty much R settings, you can't hear that cabin noise as much. If I shut up a little bit and just drive, you won't be able to hear when I accelerate. It sounds much more organic and real. But then when you put it back into R mode, that just sounds so tinny and artificial. I really don't like that. I wish in R mode you could turn off the fake noise, because the real noise of the engine, when you're revving it right up and crossing over that VTEC band at the top of the rev range, it sounds so good naturally. But God, I would love to hear this car with an exhaust. I'd love to have some bigger, wider wheels on it. I'd love to have some coilovers in here, just to really feel like what this car is modded. But again, that's the thing with Civics and Hondas in general, is that out of the box, they are such fantastic driving cars. I tried to find many ways to hate this car because I honestly do love it. And the admiration that I have for this car purely comes from how it made me feel. There are so many new cars on the market today, there's so much that you can go and spend your money on. But when you're buying something, particularly if you're outlaying 80,000 Australian dollars for a Honda Civic, it has to make you feel something to the core, and this car absolutely does. I think the thing that speaks to me most about this car is not only how functional it is in using it for every aspect of life. Like, it's a big enough car that you can fit 5 people in it relatively comfortably. You can do that and absolutely send it and push your driving limits. The car could drive way better than I ever could drive. You can fit 4 wheels in this plus tools if you're going to the track for a track day. You can drive on the track, drive at home without any issues. But most of all, above all of that, above everything else, with the price, the dying breed, whatever, all the themes that we've talked about today, this car is fun. And that's what it comes down to. Like, we love cars, well, I do anyway, and I'm sure you're partly the same, because of how they make us feel. And this car makes me feel like a teenager again. It makes me feel like the same excitement of driving all the JDM Heroes on Gran Turismo, or being in Japan and seeing all the cars, seeing the culture, and just realizing you're part of not just a car in the case of the Type R, but you're part of the whole lineage. You're part of the journey when you're driving this thing. This has the soul from all of the old Type Rs that I've driven. I've driven Integras, I've driven Civics. This feels the same as those cars, just in modern skin. But this really feels like the end of an era. With how the world's going, with how everything's changing. It's a real bittersweet feeling to be driving a car like this, because it's truly, truly special, and it's really the end of what we know driving is at the moment anyway. So, if this is the end of the Type R as we know it, it's sad, but it's a good swan song, because this car embodies the spirit of all of the old Japanese cars that I grew up lusting after, in something that has Apple CarPlay, new Recaros, a big boot, and back seats so you can fit all your mates. It's the perfect car under $100,000. And while I can't say it is the best car under $100,000, in my opinion, from what I've driven, it's my favourite. And maybe this is the end for the Type R as we know it, but if it is, it's the perfect way to go out. Not many cars can replicate the feeling of the JDM Heroes that we grew up playing on PlayStation or reading in the magazines in a brand new car that has all this tech, all this comfort, and a really good interior for sub $100,000. Mechanically, it's awesome. The K20C1 is a fantastic motor. It rips hard when you need it, but it's docile enough to cruise around in comfort mode and feel like your grandpa's Civic when you're not. Overall, Honda absolutely nailed it with this package. They've engineered it to perfection, and not only its lap records on the ring and Suzuka will tell you this, but just the way that it feels behind the wheel. And that feeling becomes a major component to any car purchase, and it's a theme that I've really wanted to highlight because it's so important to me, and I'm sure it is to you too. But what do you think? Is this the end for the Type R as we know it? I'd love to know what you think in the comments below. And if you love this film and want to see more just like it and even bigger and better, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching. My name's Pat. This is 2PJZ. Never forget to stay driven, and we'll see you in the next one.